Welcome to International Definition. My name is Kenneth Freelain, and I'm going to be your host for today's edition of International Definition. Today on International Definition, we're going to feature the engineering tribute to the presidential inauguration of January 20th, 2013. Today, we're going to receive some information about the North American Water and Power Alliance. The North American Water and Power Alliance was conceived in the 1950s by the United States Army Corps of Engineers. Certain projects were called great projects, and one of the great projects involved the development of more water resources for the United States. The planners envisioned the diversion of water resources from some rivers in Alaska south through Canada by way of the Rocky Mountain Trench and other routes to the United States. And the entire project would involve 369 smaller and separate construction projects. The water would enter the United States through northern Montana. There, the water would be diverted to the headwaters of rivers like the Colorado River and others. The water would generate hydroelectric power as it passed through dams. The water supply would double the total amount of fresh water available to the lower 48 states, with its major focus being on the western states. This would solve the water shortage problems of the West for the foreseeable future. The amount of water available would in fact be so great that some water would be left over for use by Mexico by way of the Colorado River. By the way, today, the Colorado River is significantly depleted as it enters Mexico. The United States Army Corps of Engineers has studied this project in the late 1950s and in the early 1960s. This project was very close to realization. Washington State Senator Scoop Jackson was a significant sponsor. Senator Jackson was a person who believed in this project. The project was opposed by public sentiment in Canada. Recently, there has been a resurgence in the effort to implement NAWAPA, the North American Water and Power Alliance, as a result of the activities of Lyndon LaRouche and his LaRouche Pact. Now, let's watch a video which will provide us with some additional information about this proposed engineering project.
The meeting has had North America-wide publicity. February 22nd, 1965. What do you call a plan that would divert 36 trillion gallons of water annually from Alaska and northern Canada southward to 33 U.S. states, 7 Canadian provinces, and 3 Mexican states? That would irrigate 40 million acres of land in 17 western states, more than is currently being irrigated. That would yield 100 million kilowatts of electricity, equivalent to 75 Hoover dams. You call it NAWAPA, the North American Water and Power Alliance. That's what. And for $80 billion spent over a period of 30 years, NAWAPA would be the greatest...
July 20th, 1965. Mr. K.D. McFarland, Manager of Public Relations, Ralph M. Parsons Company. Dear Ken, I enjoyed the visit that I had with you and Mr. Parsons while we waited to see the Vice President. I'm glad that we did have a brief chat with him. As you can see, his time's always overfilled, and it is hard to break in for a visit of any length. However, he was happy to see you, and has mentioned to me since we returned to Washington that he was glad to get acquainted with Mr. Parsons, and he was looking forward to the material on the NAWAPA project. 5 of us from the Congress met at lunch last week, and decided to open correspondence and communication with some of the Canadian parliamentarians that we met in Ottawa earlier in the year. I'll let you know if anything grows out of this effort. Sincerely, Frank Moss. August 12, 1965. The President, the White House, Washington, D.C. Dear Mr. President, I have been honored to be invited twice during the past week to witness the signing of bills dealing with our water resources. The River Basin Planning Bill and the Saline Water Conversion Water Bill are both landmarks along the way in meeting a problem that is pressing down on us more severely every day. As you know, I wholeheartedly supported both of these bills and believe that we need to increase our efforts in these areas. I do believe there is another area that's not getting its full attention yet, and I would like to have an opportunity to talk with you about it, or better still, have a chance to bring along a colored film which I have available to show you the concept of bringing large amounts of fresh, pure water from Alaska and northern Canada down through the entire United States and on to Old Mexico. This plan's called NAWAPA. Although I've mentioned this to you in offhand conversations, I realize that your time is at such a premium that you have had no opportunity to make further inquiry about it, and I've hesitated to press for time to discuss it with you because of the many, many other things that you have to command your time and attention. If, however, you could arrange a time of 30 minutes or so, I would like to come down and bring with me George Mahon, Sid Yates, and Biz Johnson from the House, Clint Anderson, Tommy Kuchik from the Senate, perhaps 2 or 3 other people. Just take time to see the film and to explain to you the concept of this idea, maybe discuss very briefly what could and should be done to move along on bringing the concept to a concrete plan. Would you please send word if this is possible? Sincerely, Frank Moss.
This motion picture is about the North American Water and Power Alliance, NAWAPA. NAWAPA has been conceived as one possible solution to help the collection and distribution segments of the overall continental water management problem. In terms of water, power, flood control, transportation, and recreational facilities, more than 33 of the states would directly benefit. In Canada, 7 provinces and 1 territory would directly benefit, as would regions in northern Mexico. For example, some areas are at the mercy of too much water, while others suffer from lack of sufficient supplies. And in other regions still, the priceless resource pours unused and wasted into the sea. The shortage of water supplies is not a local problem. It is a continental problem. In overall planning by the Ralph M. Parsons Company, the NAWAPA concept takes advantage of the geographical and climatological factors of our continent. Only water which is surplus now or in the foreseeable future.
September 3rd, 1965. Dear colleague, I am writing to call your attention to a resolution I have introduced, Senate Concurrent Resolution 55, which provides it to be the sense of Congress that the President refer to the International Joint Commission, the subject of the North American Water and Power Alliance, with instructions that it be fully studied and that a detailed engineering survey be conducted on it. The resolution will be on the desk for co-sponsorship through Wednesday, September 8th. Sincerely, Frank Moss.
Dear Ted, acknowledging your good note of September 3rd, I am confident I would vote with you on your resolution. With every good wish, sincerely, Stuart Symington,
Dear Ted,
Senator,
it will
Missouri.
be a pleasure to join you as a co-sponsor on this resolution, which covers the subject so vitally important to this hemisphere. My commendations to you for the excellent work you are doing in regards to this project. Sincerely, Paul Fannin, United States.
The possibility of developing a water supply in the north for use in the United States should be of concern to all of us. Sincerely, Mike Monroney, Senator, Oklahoma.
September 8, 1965. Dear Ted, I'm glad to join you as a co-sponsor of Senate Concurrent Resolution 55, expressing the sense of Congress that the President refer to the International Joint Commission the subject of the North American Water and Power Alliance. My staff has informed Ms. Rischel of my desire to join you on this measure. This proposal deserves careful study and consideration by both the United States and Canada, and has applications to the East as well as the West. Sincerely, Robert F. Kennedy, U.S. Senate, New York.
New York Times, September 12, 1965. A far-reaching new plan for diverting huge water masses has caught the attention of Congress and has enlisted the support of a highly influential group of American industrial and financial leaders. Senator Moss took the first steps earlier this month to start such a study when he introduced a resolution requesting that the study be undertaken by the meeting. When he said recently, there was a general agreement that the NAWAPA project was essential if our economic growth and standard of living. The question that emerged from the meeting was not whether NAWAPA should be undertaken, but rather how it would be completed.
September 18th, 1965. Dear Senator Moss, since your speech on the water diversion from northern Canada to the United States, we have developed a rash of would-be patriots, that is, editorial writers, two-bit politicians, etc., who are very much against it. Their reasons expressed are as varied as the colors of the rainbow, when in reality, they just don't want progress. Personally, I am in favor of such an undertaking, and there are millions of other Canadians who feel the same way, but are lackadaisical in their methods of expressing their feelings. During various discussions on the subject, the opponents say, if we give the water to the USA, how will we ever get it back? And my reply to this is, how do we get it back from the Arctic Ocean? Respectfully yours,
September
Ed
23rd,
Negrich,
1965.
Scarborough, Ontario.
Dear Senator Moss, I have read with enthusiasm the recent New York Times article regarding plans for controlled water use throughout most of North America. The map accompanying it did not take in my part of the country about whose water problems I have been thinking and working. One point they should bear in mind is that, according to the Atomic Energy Commission, tunnels can be constructed by underground atomic explosions at 1/10 the cost of conventional methods. As a lawyer and economist, I believe I could be useful in many ways in making this project a reality, and hope you can suggest some way in which my services can be used. I also might be able to help in Ottawa, since I have corresponded on international matters with Prime Minister Lester Pearson for many years. Please tell me what I can do to help this very constructive effort. Respectfully yours, Frederick C. Smedley, New York.
My dear Senator Moss, recently my attention was drawn to an advertisement of the Ralph M. Parsons Company on NAWAPA. This letter is just to tell you that I am immensely interested in this plan, which strikes me as meritorious indeed. Speaking as an engineer, I am enticed by the scope of NAWAPA and by the magnificence of the concept. I wish your committee all success in its mission, which is truly in the national interest. Sincerely yours, A.M. Gaudin, Richards Professor of Mineral Engineering, Massachusetts Institute of Technology.
October 1st, 1965. Dear Mr. Smedley, I certainly appreciate your letter of September 29th concerning my NAWAPA resolution. The measure is now before the Senate Public Works Committee, of which I'm a member, but no further action has been taken yet. I am, however, most encouraged at the interest which has developed in various circles. It's most thoughtful of you to offer your assistance.
Dear Senator Moss, I would like to mention that, in my opinion, by next February 1966, a restricted semi-official meeting be arranged in Montreal between our government representatives. I hope you were not put off by various speakers who lately have attacked the NAWAPA project. I hope this will be useful for future deliberations. I am seeing the Honorable Alvin Hamilton tomorrow, and knowing that he met you in Ottawa, it will be interesting to obtain his reaction. With kindest regards, I remain yours sincerely, Jean Bourguignon.
Dear colleague, I believe you will be interested in a letter, copy attached, which I have just received from the Executive Secretary of the Montreal Port Council. I strongly endorse his suggestion that a restricted, semi-official meeting be held by next February. As you know, I have long believed that discussions should be held between Canadian and United States officials on this significant question. I'd be most interested in your reaction to Mr. Bourguignon's letter.
Dear Ted,
Sincerely,
I am all in favor of any meeting that will help to solve our local, national, and international water problems. And so a meeting of the kind that Mr. Bourguignon suggests would certainly be desirable. With warm regards, I remain cordially yours, Ernest Gruning, U.S. Senator,
Diverting
Alaska.
Arctic water to Western Canada, the United States, and Mexico. I certainly support such discussions. The sooner we can begin talks and arrange for negotiations, the better. Our water supply problems are going to become geometrically more acute. I would hope that this question could receive prompt attention and not be unduly delayed. With best regards, and aloha. Sincerely yours, Hiram Fong, Senator.
United States officials on the question of development of water resources. Needless to say, I'll be very pleased to cooperate with you fully. With kindest regards, sincerely yours, Sidney R. Yates, Member of Congress from Illinois.
October 12, 1965. Mr. Kenneth McFarland, Director of Public Relations, Ralph M. Parsons Company. Dear Ken, as I mentioned to you, I was on a long-wire radio panel this weekend for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, along with Ray Williston, Minister of Lands and Forests and Water Resources for British Columbia. One of the questions of the moderator put Williston on the hot seat. He said, since the British Columbia government exports oil and gas and lumber, how can it justify the statement of the Prime Minister for British Columbia that water is a resource which should never be exported? Williston, of course, could not distinguish as to why export of petroleum in return for monetary compensation is any different than export of water. I pointed out also that water is a renewable resource, and the petroleum is one that is
concerned about the water resources. Have you given any thought to this?
The United States is finding that water is one of its most valuable and becoming one of its scarcest resources. And we have lots of water. Now, we have to be careful and not to alienate this great resource without taking care of our own needs. We will be discussing this with the United States, who are very anxious to work out arrangements by which some of our water resources are moved down south. This can be one of the most important developments in our history.
October 18, 1965. On September 1st, Senator Moss introduced Senate Concurrent Resolution 55 and made an extensive address to the Senate at that time in support of the resolution. On September 7th, Representative David S. King introduced an identical resolution in the House as House Concurrent Resolution 488. The Board of Trustees of the Northwest Public Power Association adopted a resolution in
October
support
20th,
of the proposal.
1965. Dear Senator Moss, how does it look for getting Senate Concurrent Resolution 55 adopted before this session adjourns? How about White House backing? Sincerely, Fred Smedley.
November 3rd, 1965. Dear Senator, while your desire to move ahead with international discussions and studies is understandable, it appears, at least at this time, that we would not be prepared to do so by next February. Sincerely, Lee C. White, Special Counsel.
Dear Senator Moss, we do not doubt that it will eventually be necessary to study and develop projects such as the NAWAPA if we are to meet the growing water requirements of the North American continent. However, before doing this, we believe it essential that a more complete study of our own resources be made. Sincerely yours, Stuart Udall, Secretary of...
Dear Senator, the possibility of discussions with the Canadian government in the future should not be ruled out, but I am sure you will agree that the timing of such discussions is very important. If and when it is appropriate and desirable to discuss these problems with Canada, we will certainly do so. Sincerely, Lee C. White, Special Counsel to the President.
Just 6 days ago, the people of America were jolted by an announcement. Our casualties in Vietnam in a single week had exceeded the average weekly rate of dead and wounded in the Korean War. 240 Americans killed, 470 wounded. If the American public had not known until then, they know now. The United States is indeed at war, a full-dress war against a formidable enemy. Most of these casualties were suffered in the Battle of Ia Drang Valley, the biggest, the costliest, the most significant yet fought by American troops in Vietnam.
Nearly 10 bombing missions an hour round the clock, and still they came, the communists determined that Clay May must fall. With their backs to their main supply depot, 3 regiments of PAVN, North Vietnamese regulars, were waiting behind fortified bunkers. For 4 hours, the enemy poured mortar rounds into the landing zones, but the cavalry stood its ground. For the first time in the Vietnam War, American unit casualties were described as moderate. Most of the casualties were taken at night. The medevac helicopters came in blackness under fire. Captain Guy Kimsey was one of the pilots.
January 11th, 1966. Dear Ken, I look forward to hearing from Mr. Parsons and hope that I can be on hand when he presents the NAWAPA concept to the President. Congress is underway, and I expect we are going to have a fairly tough session this year with the Vietnam War. However, I hope we can make some real headway on our NAWAPA program.
February
Sincerely,
3rd, 1966. Dear Mr. Senator, I read with great interest recently your comment in connection with the multi-billion-dollar water plan, which has important implications so far as Canada is concerned. I am president of the Prairie Flood Control Organization. We are planning our annual meeting at the present time, and it seems to me that this would be a wonderful opportunity for you to bring us your message. If you come to speak to us, we shall plan to have representatives of the provincial governments of Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. I shall be awaiting with keen interest your reply. Respectfully yours, H.L. Henderson, Mayor.
February 28,
Portage-la-Prairie,
1966.
Manitoba.
The Honorable A.N. McLean, the Senate, Ottawa, Canada. My dear Senator McLean, you recall that we met in Ottawa last year when I presented the NAWAPA concept at the interparliamentary meeting. I can say that I consider a diversion of Arctic water to be the best hope to supply the deficiency in the Great Lakes, and which now limits the developments of the western regions of our 2 nations. I look forward with great interest to discussing this question further with you. I'd be very pleased to hear from you. Sincerely, Frank Moss.
Mr. Grant Midgley, Office of Senator Frank Moss, March 15, 1966. Dear Mr. Midgley, it was a pleasure to meet with you recently in Washington and to hear of Senator Moss's progress with regard to NAWAPA. I have subsequently read with great interest the Senator's remarks in the Congressional Record of February 4, 1966. I thought that the Senator's statement should be brought to the attention of a number of people across Canada who are directly concerned with water resources. Would it be possible, therefore, to obtain 100 copies of this statement for redistribution through our office?
I'm glad that you were able to join us for today's edition of International Definition. Today on International Definition, we examine the North American Water and Power Alliance, also known as NAWAPA. We did this as a part of the engineering tribute to the presidential inauguration of January 20th, 2013. And now, until our next broadcast, I'm your host, Kenneth Freelain, thanking you for joining us today.